don't necessarily mean we need to jump right into it right now, but okay. So this is going to be an installment on another YouTube channel that I started with, which is just my name.
Okay.
And then this is going to be Moustachioed Reactions, where it's under that playlist of movie reactions or music reactions or something like that.
Yeah.
So like waking life, first of all, I guess maybe I'll just try to do it this way since I'm kind of thinking through it. Everyone out there watching right now on the Travis Finley channel with this playlist, this is my good friend Mark Doxey from over the Atlantic. And where are you at exactly? You know exactly.
Ireland, the north of Ireland, in the county Down. A place called Downpatrick, where allegedly St. Patrick was buried. There's a gravestone up there.
Oh, is there really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
All right. And didn't he chase all of the serpents out of Ireland?
Apparently, according to the legend, yeah.
The legend, yeah.
I mean, the St. Patrick's Day is still in the winter for us, and so it's never a good weather, even though they try and celebrate it here. It's always a washout. There's nothing like in Boston or New York. But we try our best.
Okay. All right. So what, like in a general, as much as you can package your recollection in terms of how you appreciated this movie when you saw it for the first time, like what were some things that came to your mind in the purpose and the format and the presentation of this movie?
Well, the movie's about multiple dreams of the same character, and he meets people in each individual segment of his dreams, and he doesn't philosophize, but he listens to the person who is sharing philosophical thoughts about the meaning of life or dreams or just the point of life, trying to work things out. And we have young people, male, female, old. We even have a chimp giving his opinion on life. So there's a lot to talk about if we just took one section at a time.
Sure.
And see what we get from it personally.
Yeah.
And whether there's an obvious message or a subtle message.
Did you enjoy it the first time you watched it? Was it something that...
I found it hard work. It didn't hold my attention because there's no link through it other than these are his dreams. But I persevered on the second time, and I get that there's a depth to it that can open up quite interesting discussions. As we already had, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and the more and more I watch it, the more I see this connection from even the first scene that we're going to watch to the seventh scene. They connect in terms of the same motif or the same idea. But yeah, what would you say is like the philosophical or a philosophical point of view that you can pick up throughout the movie? Like, I guess, like what themes do you feel like it could address? Not just one theme in general, but...
I think we're all drawing our own conclusions about what life is about. Some of our points of view may cross. We may share some, or we may disagree with it. But I quite liked the different characters that come in. Are we going to go to the very first character?
Yeah, we're going to start off with the very first scene.
That's him in the garden with another girl.
That's the way I take it, because it's
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the way that I try to describe it, if I'm ever talking to someone about this movie, is I think that it deals with meaning, existence, purpose. Anything that comes to your mind, feel free to but that's what I mean in terms of the philosophical aspect of it. It's like, what are we, why are we here? Who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? I think all of these things are addressed in this movie. Now, even in just a peripheral, like it leaves you hanging. Like the very end of the movie for me, when it was all over, I was thinking, oh my God, if there was another episode, I'd be watching it right now because I was just so into it. And it just was the last scene. And I feel like I would love to try to figure out how to make contact with Richard Linklater, who is the writer director, and say, okay, look, you're going to be coming up on, the 25th anniversary. Like, are you going to do you have a part 2? Like, come on, man. Like, it's just so good. So good. But all right, let's see. Anything else that I was going to bring up or say? I think I'm right now.
Did you find any of the characters contradict each other or draw in polar opposite opinions?
Well, I think that goes back to what you just said in terms of drawing our own conclusions. It's that, to me, man, the way that I've taken a complete 180-degree turn with my spirituality and my religious upbringing, it opens up life so much more that I can absorb your perspective. I can absorb your ideas or not.
Yeah.
It's just this open flowing, and I might not get something that you have an insight into. I might not understand it right now, but then 2 years from now, it's taken that long to germinate and it can blossom and flower. And so it might be possible for me to contradict you or maybe disagree with you initially, but then sometime later on, it develops and you finally see the fruition of an idea that you planted in my head.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's, your question is a good question. And I think that it's definitely worth being aware of. I hadn't thought about any of the characters contradicting the others, but that would be interesting to keep in the back of my mind now that you mentioned it, to see if I can, or even you, if there was something that you picked up, then, absolutely feel free to bring it up. But so just in case, well, again, whoever's watching this, unless they have not watched the movie and they don't really care about spoilers, we're going to be talking about the movie, and I'm probably not going to be jumping back and forth between scenes, but merely discussing scenes that I can recall and then just bringing them in for touch points. So I guess what I was saying was that if anybody's familiar with this movie, that it was filmed in live action, although there was green screens and they weren't even on real sets, really. It was just the actors doing something in an unreal situation. And then the artists come in and put the backgrounds in, but then also do an overlay of a cartoon of the character itself.
Yeah.
Or herself or himself or whatever it is. So I wasn't prepared for this movie. It came up in YouTube, on my YouTube feed, and it was a cartoon, and it was called Waking Life. And I think I clicked on the premiere or the preview and thought that it looked interesting, but then I never watched it. And then I think I posted a community post and said, hey, I'm thinking about watching this movie. And I got a few comments. Oh, I loved it. It was a great movie. So then I decided to watch it. And I rented it from YouTube. And again, from the very opening scene, I was just drawn in. It was just something that just clicked with me and resonated with me. But yeah. So what we'll do is we'll start it out from the beginning, and do what we did like we did last time. Whenever you have an idea or a thought, just speak up, and I'll push pause, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. Waking Life.
Pick a color. BLUE. Pick a number. 8. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pick one more number.
All right, so this is just completely.
Can I just mention about levels? That the
Yeah. Go ahead.
Do we need to increase the levels of the video? The volume of you coming through compared to the volume of the video.
Are you talking about our audio? And
yeah, if you're recording this, I'm not sure about the levels, the volume of the video.
Well, I
know you're going to edit it anyway, but you come through very not loud, but very clear. But this is just quite soft.
The movie is quite soft for you. I've got the volume all the way up.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure how to adjust anything. If you can, let me see if there's. Let me see if the settings does anything. Audio. That's just for me. There's nothing on the playback that I can see. I didn't feel like it was low for myself.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, the one thing that I was going to say about this that I really like, and you know that thing that all parents do or grandparents do when they're feeding a very small child, and the child is opening its mouth and the parent is putting the spoon there. The parent will open their mouth as well.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So when the girl starts to count to 15, the boy counts along with her and he moves his mouth.
Okay.
I don't know if you noticed that before.
No, I didn't notice that.
I thought that was just so true to life that it probably was a natural thing that the child did and they didn't have to prompt him to do it. But I loved it. I just thought it was so authentic, I guess. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, just watch him over here. When she starts to count, you can see his mouth move along with her.
15, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It was just really subtle. Just went by real fast.
Pick another number. 6. Okay. Dream is destiny.
So we had the music come in just right then as well. You know, before then there was no music, and Dream is Destiny. And I remember seeing his face for the first time, and it was like in my mind, I was thinking, he's thinking, what does that mean? Like, what does that even mean? Because normally when you're a child and you're playing that flower game, it's like you're going to marry Susie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something small and trifle, but here this big, massive Dream is Destiny. Were you going to say something?
No, I get that. I get what you're saying.
So let's talk about that, though, because in my opinion, as an artist, there is nothing without purpose. So then the Dream is Destiny, in my opinion, is a very deep, intentional message. I'm not saying I know exactly what it is, but I didn't get it the first time. I had to watch it over and over and over again. And then I think after the 20th time watching it and seeing that, I'm thinking, man, there's got to be something like.
Well, immediately it appears to be like an oxymoron, doesn't it? You know, dreaming is not real, and yet, but destiny is where you're going.
Right. Yeah. So then there's this interesting marrying of a simulation with reality, because the dream is a simulation. And so that thing which is not real seems to, in the creator's mind, and by creator I mean Richard Linklater, in his mind, he seems to believe that dreams have a purpose in shaping your destiny.
Well, yeah, some dreams you hope never happen, but other dreams you would hope that does happen. But the dream has got no control over your destiny.
Well, that goes back into the whole idea of manifestation and positive affirmations, you know, because there are those spiritual, I don't know if you can associate it with Hinduism or Buddhism particularly, but have you come across those spiritual channels or those spiritual teachers where they talk about speaking affirmative words about yourself or your situation, so that it's not like magic hocus pocus, like you make it appear out of nowhere, but that you are training yourself to then become that thing that you are wanting to be.
Okay.
So if you dream it, it will become eventually something that fleshes itself out in your life. Now, you might not be able to control all of the ins and outs of it, but I do think that that is a part of it.
Yeah. What are those? What do they call it? Like sort of prosperity preachers. That God will pour riches upon you if you just have the faith for it.
Yeah, right. So then that becomes the whole Christian Science.
Mm-hmm.
They're, I think they're pretty much anti-medicine. It's all about faith. It's all about healing yourself. It's all about, projecting with your mental faculties and then I think it was the lead singer for Metallica. What's his name?
I can't help you on that one.
Dropping off, yeah. Anyway, his mother was a Christian Scientist, and she died from an illness because she refused medicine, and she was just supposed to believe. So he has, an antagonistic view of that. But that is an aspect of it, because in Christianity, it's the name it and claim it. It's the prosperity gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Just believe that you have this thing and it will be yours. So then the question does become, okay, so like for me, this is the way I was and still am to a certain degree. As a Christian, I really struggled with going to God in prayer over and 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 over. And I'm just praying for the same thing. Like, I was just like, I have enough faith to just say it one time, right? Because the centurion said to Jesus, just say the word and my servant will be healed.
Yeah.
Right? Just say the word. So I'd like to think that that's the simplicity of my faith, that where I don't have to keep asking God for it. I'm just like, this is what I want. I know you can do it. I'm just going to ask one time. I'm not going to keep coming back. But at the same time, is that my weakness in not coming back? Because Jesus also tells the parable of the there is a Christian pastor who wrote these books on prayer, and he has this one called The Importunate Widow. The Importunate Widow. And that just means that she poured herself out before the king over and over and over. She kept coming back because the king wasn't giving her. So then the king says, oh my God, this woman just keeps coming back. And the only thing that's going to keep her from coming back is if I give her what she wants.
Yeah.
And then Jesus says, how much more does God love you that you don't have to keep coming back? And I'm like, I always have to keep coming back. What are you talking about? Like, I don't get what I want the first time I ask for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, the Apostle Paul gives the idea that prayer should be persistent and perseverance in prayer, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. He says pray continuously.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And now we have this celestial phenomenon. Is this a comet? Is this what, so there's some kind of correspondence here that I don't know if it comes back up again, but it's something worth noting.
So is it the comet that's pulling him forward, upwards?
Well, I mean, that is one of the supernatural aspects of comets. They say that there are energies and things phenomenon that come around whenever comets are there. So it could be an association that way. Yeah. I think that this, again, for me, was just a really interesting feel. Like, I tried to remember dreams that I've had and tried to think of, did I ever experience something that felt like this? Because all of a sudden it just seems like he's being, lifted off the ground. And he reaches for the door handle of the car. So now this is a spoiler because the very last scene in the movie, I think, has to be tied to this.
Yes, yeah.
Because the very last scene is the pinball scene with Richard Linklater, who is a character. He's a recurring character that the dreamer recognizes. So the dreamer is walking in his last dream, and then he comes into this room where the Richard's character is playing pinball, and the dreamer recognizes him, and he says, "Weren't you that guy in that boat car?" Mm-hmm. So he remembers seeing him, but Richard Linklater's character says, "I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you might know what you're talking about, but I don't remember what you're talking about." Mm-hmm. And then in that whole scene, this idea of what time is comes into play, which is deeply philosophical. And he brings up the fact that time is just an illusion of a singular moment. And that's all we ever have, like right now. That's all we have is right now. And he makes this statement that time is our saying no to God, that we don't want to leave this place and go and be with our creator, whoever that is. Mm-hmm. And so going back to this scene, in this scene, this character, the dreamer, is holding on, and he's saying no to God. He doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
Because this scene comes back in the very end of the movie, and we won't get to that point just yet. But yeah.
The dream is destiny. Here, his destiny is he's been enraptured upwards, but he doesn't want that destiny because he's fighting with it. He's holding onto the car.
Right, which is the opposite of the Hindu and Buddhist mentality of attachment, right? You're supposed to, and one of the first scenes where we have when he gets off the train and when he gets into the taxi that's a boat, that character gives him the idea of being very unattached, that just letting things come into your life and then letting things go. Mm-hmm. It's just breathing and flowing. He says something very philosophical. The sea refuses no river, right? The river just comes into the ocean, and the ocean just brings it in. Just come on in.
Yeah.
And then it puts it wherever it needs to, or it lets it go wherever it needs to go. And so it's just this openness of life and awareness and intention. But going back to the dream is destiny, I was trying to think of like destination, right? It's the goal. And then, so if I have in my mind where I think my destination is going to be in terms of my life, how am I going to get there? Am I just going to sit back and let life happen to me and be a reactor? Or can I shape my future? Can I actually create that thing that I am dreaming about? Like, oh, I would love to be this or that or that. That's my dream. So I have to have this intention initially. And then I think that the unpacking of this idea in the movie is that you should be able to be a master Jedi of your dream world, of your dream life, so that you go into that dream life every single time fully aware that you're dreaming. And I'm in a dream right now. I can do anything that I want. What am I going to do? What's my dream? Oh, I want to be a musician. Okay. So because time in a dream isn't the same as waking lifetime, I can spend 30 years in this dream and learn how to play the piano. And then when I wake up, I need to remember how to play the piano.
Right.
That's the idea that I have in terms of what dream is destiny is. Dream is a simulation that you can go into and accomplish anything that you want. Find a particular skill that you want to get good at and do it in your dreams. So that you not only are aware that you're dreaming so that you can manipulate the simulation, but also when you then leave the simulation, you wake up with the skill that you just learned.
Nice.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Play the guitar like Eric Clapton after one
I'm telling you, right? You know, but see, that's the whole thing, right? See, they show us that in the movie The Matrix. I can't remember. Did you ever see The Matrix?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I didn't get it.
Okay, so basically, The Matrix again is a simulation. So when Neo is taken out of the simulation and brought into the real world is dystopic. It's broken. You know, the computers are running everything, and there's no sun, and everything's just death and dying, and there's no life, and blah blah blah. So what do they do when they need to learn a skill to go into the simulation? They upload data.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So Neo goes into the chair. They hook him up. And his eyes go back and forth. He's got rapid eye movement. And then he comes up and he opens his eyes and he says to Morpheus, I know Kung Fu. And Morpheus goes, show me. So he just learned, right? And then they did it later on in the simulation with Trinity. She needed to fly this Huey helicopter. And Neo says, you know how to fly that? And she says, not yet. You know, like 2 seconds later. But that 2 seconds could have been 4 years of training. But they just don't show you that to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Makes total sense to me.
What I find corny about James Bond films is that whatever situation he's in or whatever machine needs to be handled, he knows how to do it, as though he's done it all his life. Like he can jump into a helicopter and do fantastic acrobats with it. And then the next thing he's on a speedboat. You know, so that's the corny part of.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. But if you're a super spy, that's part of the
training, yeah.
Qualifications, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now this is the dreamer who was dreaming of himself as a child.
Yes.
And he's on a train. He's woken up from the dream that he's on. So when I was first watching this, I wasn't picking up that it was dream into dream into dream. I thought that he was actually waking up and we're just watching a cartoon still. So we watched a cartoon dream, and then the dreamer wakes up on a train and it's still a cartoon. That's just the format.
Mm-hmm.
This scene to me is very confusing. Like what style of music is this for you? Like, can you? It's to me, it's like chaotic almost. It's
to me, it's just the opening music of any thriller film. You know, when you get the cast and
yeah,
that is just nothing in particular. Maybe a 1950s sort of Hitchcock film. The opening music to it.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to accentuate that nuance, but I think you're pretty close to that because it just has this really interesting feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem to be that this orchestra is being introduced as, you know, the music that's going to follow throughout the entire rest of the movie. But what happens after the guy who is I guess leading them, when they go into the next piece of music, it actually transitions into the sounds of the train coming to a stop.
Yeah.
Right. So I really appreciate it. It was, you know, because you start out with this instrumental, but then it starts to transition into an industrial sound, which then becomes the sounds of a train. So I really appreciated that.
Sarah, will you try the thing you asked me about, when you're doubling Gene? Yeah. Will you try it a little more subdued vibrato? Just try it and see what you think. That one? But what I want it to sound rich and maybe almost a little wavy due to being slightly out of tune.
So the thing for me is that it was the term that he chose, slightly wavy, to me is not a technical term in music.
Okay.
I don't know. It's almost like it's an unreal part of the dream where it's not an authentic scenario where the orchestra is talking, because it's like, you know, can you make it sound a little wavy? I don't know, man. To me, it just doesn't seem like that's a technical term that would be legitimate. Like, what does that mean? What do you mean wavy? Even though we mentioned the vibrato a little bit before, because the vibrato has to do with, I think, the undulation of your voice, right? Yeah. Falsetto is the high pitch, right? Vibrato, vibration. So it could just be that maybe he's just choosing wavy as another way of expressing vibrato. But I don't know. This scene, as much as I enjoy it, it's still one of those things I'm just thinking, what is this? Because there's nothing philosophical here per se.
Oh no, I'm gonna stick to what I feel it is. It's just the music at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
You've got the cast good.
Right. And then, so the third person view, right? The dreamer, apparently, because there were some parts of this scene where it looks like you're shifting your viewpoint. You know, he's looking this way and he's looking that way. So then it kind of drags across the scene. So like he's the observer, almost like a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Do you want it? I think those should be slightly detached. That's what I think. Okay, pick up to 20, please. Eric, this is the pick up to 20. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
And I really just love this whole style. The music in this whole thing. I really enjoy all of it.
It's like an Agatha Christie movie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got really good nuances to it.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing that I want to point out here is that everything is dislocated. There's nothing that is stable.
It's wavy.
You know, but to him, it's like normal. He doesn't feel like he's out of place. He doesn't feel like he's in a world that's unstable. So for us as looking in, it's communicating to us in its instability that this is a dream. But for him, everything's solid, everything's linear, everything's normal. And I think that that's an interesting aspect to our awareness in dreams. Like, I mean, I can think of things where I wouldn't do something. I mean, if you want to pick out going to school naked, right? If you, because I've had those dreams. You know, I haven't had a dream like that since I was probably in high school or middle school. But I've dreamt about going to school and then just looking down and being naked. But I didn't know at that moment that I was in a dream. Mm-hmm. It felt like I was like, why would I be in school? There's no way I would. So there's an aspect of even awareness in your surroundings, I guess. And then just these artistic, you know, following the chord. I really like that.
I thought maybe I could bum a ride off you or something, but that's cool. yeah, I guess I'll hang out with you later or something like that.
So somebody's let him down to pick him up from the train station.
Well, I don't know that it was, because he was saying that he was just calling to see if he could get a ride.
Right. Okay.
But it might have been that they had said, the guy said, yeah, give me a call when you get in and I'll come pick you up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So another thing that I didn't think about, I just thought that this was like just somebody's tricked out car. Again, I wasn't, when I first watched this, I wasn't into thinking that this is a dream, because who's going to be driving some kind of boat car?
Yeah.
But the girl that was in the scene before that comes up in a scene later on toward the end.
Right.
And it's really interesting because she recognizes him and says, do you remember me at the train station? You saw me, you looked at me a few times. And he's like, no, I remember being at the train station, but I don't remember you. So he can't remember her. But then in the next scene after that, later on in the movie, he comes across one of these characters and he remembers that character.
Yeah.
So I think those are just interesting little connections.
So this next bit, it sets the scene of listening to the philosophy of another person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Ahoy there, matey. You in for the long haul? Do you need a little hitch in your get-along, a little lift on down the line?
Oh, yeah, actually I was waiting for a cab or something, but if you want to...
All right. Don't miss the boat.
Don't miss the boat.
Hey, thanks.
So this character here is the same character at the end who's playing the pinball machine. This is the writer-director, Richard Linklater.
Right. Okay.
Not a problem. Anchors away! So what do you think of my little vessel? She's what we call seaworthy, S-E-E, see with your eyes. I feel like my transport should be an extension of my personality. Voila. And this is like my little window to the world, and every minute's a different show. Now, I may not understand it, I may not even necessarily agree with it, but I'll tell you what, I accept it and just sort of glide along. You want to keep things on an even keel, I guess is what I'm saying. You want to go with the flow. The sea refuses no river.
Yeah, that's your line, isn't it? So his philosophy is whatever comes along, just get along with it.
Yeah, I find no attachment. So one of the spiritual book that I was reading, I can't remember what it was, but it told this story of a village where a young girl and a man had an affair, and she got pregnant. And then, in order to protect her lover, she said that it was the priest or the magi guy up in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So then, when the woman had given birth, they took the baby and went up to the priest or the magi and said, "This is your child. You're now going to be taking care of this child." And the priest says, "It is what it is," and
Mm-hmm.
he took the child in. And then years later, the lovers came together and decided to get married, and then they want the child back. So then she comes clean and says to the village, "Look, we're married now. We might as well tell you that child was actually ours." So then they go up to the hermit and they say, "We need the child back." And he says, "It is what it is." And he gives the child back. That's just that openness to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's no anxiety with this guy. People in my life, my mother, my wife, can get very anxious and expect the worst outcome, and it very rarely is the worst outcome. What's anxiety today, in a week's time, it's forgotten. It's gone.
Okay, so you're bringing up an aspect of time. So in the moment right now, when there's no anxiety, you are creating by anticipating the future, which hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So you create worry about the future rather than just being here in the moment when there's no worry.
Yeah, that's right. Well, but that brings Jesus into it again, doesn't it? Not to be anxious about tomorrow, because each day has got its own. Oh, I can't remember the quote.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Take each day as it comes.
And so then the opposite, then, instead of looking into the future, worried about what the future is going to bring, the opposite is then regret. Whereas you look into the past and you say, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. And then I struggle with that all the time.
Yeah.
Beating myself up over making decisions that didn't pan out or didn't work out or whatever. And those can be, really debilitating, as opposed to, like you said, when you first started talking about the captain here, he's just in the moment, which is again, later on, something that's going to come up as a theme for this waking life movie that we're in. I actually made a video. I didn't make any commentary except that the title was Luke Skywalker was a puff of a Jedi, because he didn't know how to let go. He was in training with Yoda in the Dagobah system. He had this premonition that Leia and Han were in trouble, and he's like, I gotta go. And both Yoda and Obi-Wan were like, you got to let that, you can't be worried about it. You have to be here in this moment. Like, don't worry about what you can't control. So even they were trying to bring him into, but in my opinion, Luke Skywalker never grew up. He was always just a weak Jedi because he was controlled by his emotions. Ultimately, that's what I thought. But yeah, he's given us this Jedi philosophy here.
The idea is to remain in a state of constant departure while always arriving. It saves on introductions and goodbyes.
Man, I had this insight to this the other day, because this is so weird. It's like he says you have to be in the moment of like always arriving, but always coming into land, but then ready to go up. You just never. Oh, man, I really had this clear thought of like, oh, I get what he's saying here, and now I can't bring it back. But that was just it. It was just really there. It was just being in that moment. Right at that moment, The
ride does not require an explanation, just occupants. That's where you guys come in. It's like you come onto this planet with a crayon box. Now, you may get the 8-pack, you may get the 16-pack, but it's all in what you do with the crayons, the colors that you're given. And don't worry about drawing within the lines or coloring outside the lines. I say color outside the lines, you know what I mean? Color right off the page. Don't box me in. We're in motion to the ocean. We are not landlocked, I'll tell you that.
Brilliant. Love it. Love that idea. Whatever you've been handed, just use it and don't worry about coloring outside the lines or even off the page. That's brilliant.
And as well as not looking at someone else's box of crayons and saying, they got 64, I only got 8.
That's right. Yeah. I'm just wondering, somebody who's worked their way up the ladder to wealth, and big house, a yacht, etc., they wouldn't necessarily have that attitude, would they? Just let it come. They would fight for.
I think that's a bit of the, I don't know if I want to call it the irony of life in a sense, because I think that there are a bit of both kinds of people who are wealthy and yet have that healthy attitude, and yet people who are wealthy and are afraid of losing it all. So I think they both can exist. Yeah.
I remember meeting a homeless woman in Bath in England. She would been aged about maybe 60, and she had dreadlocks and she had beads in her hair. She was a white woman, and she'd been. I was there with my camera taking photographs of Bath, this beautiful city, and she came to me and she said, "I bet you wouldn't take a photograph of me, would you?" I'd love to take a photograph of you. She had all that character, and I got talking to her, and she'd been homeless for about maybe 10 years, living off on the streets. And just she told me some of the sad parts of it, but I just envied her story, that she had some nice parts and she wasn't worried about anything. She never got a gas bill or electric bill. And I came away quite refreshed after talking to her. She called herself Rainbow. She's quite a character known in the Bath area. Well, I was just there as a tourist. So she's, whatever circumstances that she has, she was a happy woman, even though she was homeless.
Well, even think about another person who would have perhaps not answered the way that you did, they would have said to themselves, damn right, I don't want to take a picture of you. You know, you're ugly, or you're homeless, or whatever. But then here you are, she was ready for an antagonistic photographer, but then all of a sudden you start to engage and find out that, you know, or she finds out that you have, you know, some empathy.
Yeah. She had something I didn't have at the time, and she was happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through mistakes, trying to sort out mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, where do you want out?
Who, me? My first? I don't know. Really, anywhere is fine.
Oh, one of the things I wanted to bring up, because it even though this guy, this captain, is talking about just being in the moment itself and not I don't know, I lost my train of thought, but being in the moment, when he was talking about you know, not boxing me in, don't box me in, we're in motion to the ocean, you know, we're not going to be landlocked, he was getting animated and a little bit irritated.
Mm-hmm.
At least the way I felt it. And so that would be actually a lower vibration rather than maintaining something, because even if someone were trying to box you in, even if someone were trying to keep you within the parameters of saying color inside the line, you should be like, okay, all right, I'll just color inside the line for right now. And then when you're gone, I'll color outside the line. But right now, when this character here, he can't bring up an address to give the driver. And the driver says, well, just, and it was like this little frustration. He's like, just give me an address.
Yeah.
So it was really funny to me that I thought, oh, he's not as Jedi as we think he is.
No, okay. Now, up to now, we don't know who the guy is next to him that was also in the cab before he
Right.
arrived,
And then and he's going to speak up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just give me an address or something, okay?
Tell you what, go up 3 more streets, take a right, go 2 more blocks, drop this guy off on the next corner.
Where's that?
Well, I don't know either, but it's somewhere, and it's going to determine the course of the rest of your life.
Yeah, he's contradicted himself, hasn't he?
All ashore that's going ashore.
Say, what do you mean?
It's going to give you the course for the rest of your life. Well, that's not his philosophy. It's whatever comes.
Okay.
Just take it. But now he's saying that where we're going to drop you off will be the destiny for the rest of your life.
Now you're making me think. So yeah, I mean, I wonder though if it could be a delicate balance, because there are certain things that we are in control of, but then there are certain things that we're not in control of that do happen to affect future outcomes. So I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just thinking out loud that it could be like this balance of both things. Like you have to be prepared for someone stepping on your crayon box and breaking your crayons, and then still using them because they can be useful.
Mm-hmm.
So that even those subtle little changes in our lives could be maybe an emotional break as a child has a larger chasm when you're an adult. Like if you don't handle it the right way,
yeah,
or if you don't, you know, so then something that could have been very, very small as a child, but then as you get older and older and you continue to react in an emotional way, then you just make that problem bigger and bigger, so that when you're an adult and you have to fix it, you've got a bigger chasm to. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just thinking out loud in terms of the possibility that, yeah. So when the dreamer says, "Where is that?" the other passenger doesn't answer.
No.
It's like he spoke up for just a moment and then he goes quiet. It's just interesting. And then he becomes the voice of destination, or destiny. And so now here we're in Texas.
Oh yes, I noticed actually on the windscreen the shape of Texas.
Oh, okay. I might not have seen that.
In the corner of the windscreen.
That's one of the nuances that the writer director he bases some of his movies in Austin, Texas.
Yeah. Now that boat just it's got an outboard motor. It's not just a car that's
Right.
that looks like a
And it sounds like an Evinrude. It sounds like an outboard motor,
yeah.
like a little sewing machine, maybe. Especially when it takes off right now. So now here comes the soundtrack.
Are we into the next dream now?
Yeah.
Yeah, should we leave it there?
Yeah. But why do you think that what's the significance of putting the paper there that says look to your right?
Don't know. Maybe we just get maybe a prodding of, and we decide to do it there and then, a direction that we've been directed to.
You know what it could be if we're talking about movies being allegorical, and that could just be almost like an intuitive feeling. So they're depicting an intuition as a note on the ground, so that he looks up to his right. Because when he crosses the street, there's no car.
No.
But the other passenger in the boat car, in the taxi, his direction to go up 3 streets, hang a right, go up 2 blocks and drop him off sets him into a position where he has a life-threatening situation.
Yeah.
It's almost like that passenger was God, because he basically took him to where he was. Now, did he actually die? Right? Is that a recollection? So here's another aspect of this whole movie, is that because at the end, when he finally gets frustrated with all I keep doing is waking up in another dream and another dream and another dream, he says, I'm beginning to think that I'm dead. So all of what's happening right here in this movie could be in his last 6 minutes of life. So he could have been hit by a car, and then he's just dreaming all of these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to doing the next bit. I mean, the next bit's going to take another hour, isn't it? So we'll call it a day there, yeah?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good, Mark.
Okay, doke.
Let's see. I'll just stop the recording here.